What up, fool?
I was wondering. I was like, are we gonna make this a thing?
I think it's happening.
It's
now.
already a thing.
No, it's been like 3 times. That's the thing. Anything more than twice is a dedicated part of our show now.
That's how dogs are, right? So they just like you do it a couple of times and then it's a thing.
I'll start calling you B too.
Like, ooh, I like this.
What up, B?
What up, B?
This is we're intentionally just trying to switch up the language that people use when they talk at work.
That's our vibe.
Yeah.
If you do it at work, we're gonna change it. So we're gonna make it not like we're gonna take what is that? We're gonna push the status quo.
Ooh,
that's what we always do. We're disruptors.
Oh Jesus. We're moving on.
There's a whole podcast.
There's a whole thing. Disruptors. Yeah, we're going to talk about. We're excited. This is one. I mean, we're always excited because we're the ones that create the content. So of course, it's things we care about. But one leadership skill that'll change your life, and we're going to talk about decisiveness and why it is the most underrated skill in leadership.
Yes. So of course I have a question.
Yeah. Damn. I keep thinking I could like side skirt it. It's fine. I like the questions, but
no, you don't.
I do.
Liar.
I feel like I'm getting better at them.
You've always been good at them. You're actually very good at them.
I like to win the questions. That's all that matters. Is
there like a winning and a losing?
Everything is winning and losing.
All right,
if you're in my brain.
I know. If you're a challenger, everything is a competition. Yeah. So my question for you is what area of life are you the most indecisive?
Oh, okay. Let me think.
I know.
Let me tell you the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Deciding what to eat for dinner.
Really?
I know, which is weird because I'm like so passionate about food.
At a restaurant, you're like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, well, yeah, more like at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so like when
when Kaylee and I are like trying to plan out our week or I literally like I can't think of any food ever. I'm just like I've never had food in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. And yeah, I don't know. And so I do know the backstory there, and I'm sure there are other areas in my life that I do it. I know that I would say exclusively those areas are probably represented like in my personal life and not at work. And the reason I do that is because I work really hard to not be that person at work, but I also get like fatigued from that. And so I'm like, I manage all of this stuff everywhere else. I don't want to do it here.
Yeah.
You know? And so there's like maybe a little bit of decision fatigue, maybe a bit of like, it feels like the stakes are lower. So I'm just not going to like care as much, you know, maybe, I don't know, but I do know that's why I do it. And because I like purposefully try to like offload, you know, that's not in my example, that's not fair. Cause then like Kaylee's always like, dude, just like, help me build a grocery list. And I was like, I've never had groceries in my life. I don't know what you're talking. And then all I could think about is like, just buy some steaks. And she's like, every night. I'm like, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Just like.
So both of us just eat steak for every meal because.
She's like, what are you in the mood for?
Steak.
Like, steak. She's like, what would you like with it? I was like, I don't know. Steak's fine. I was like, wine.
It's like steaks and eggs.
Yeah.
Or steak and wine.
Yeah.
Everything else is, you know.
I literally like could just have like steak and eggs and yogurt in my fridge. And I think I'd be like, it would be a long time before I recognized that I was like missing out.
Yeah. But also that like helps us achieve our goals. So there's like a lot of evidence there that like it's totally fine.
I think it's fine. Yeah.
Carnivore diet's it.
It's a fad now.
Wine doesn't really go with that, but it's fine.
But I'm anti-fad, so.
I mean, we gotta break up. We gotta disrupt things.
We gotta disrupt.
So we're carnivore plus wine.
I was cool before it was cool.
I like that. Yeah, no, it's been a thing. Yeah, that's interesting because when you go to a restaurant, you're like so decisive. I'm like, just order because we like all the same foods. So
yeah,
but you're like so decisive, and sometimes I'm a little indecisive. Like I want it all. I don't know.
I heard, and I don't know if this is like, I don't even know if I believe this or not, or if there's any merit to it, but I heard somebody say like I'll pay attention to how you order at a restaurant, and I'll tell you how successful you are.
Totally.
And the correlation was like the more decisive, the faster that is, the less waffling, the clearer you communicate with the server. Then the correlation was the more. I was like, oh, there's definitely clear takeaways. Now, of course, there's exceptions to every rule, but I did think that. I was like, yeah, no, I could see that. Like, that. So to what we're talking about today, that decisiveness, I think does go a long way. So let's get to it. So one of the things to kind of preface this is that people, they don't follow perfect leaders, they follow clear ones. And that's really what we're talking about. When we're talking about decisiveness, we're not saying that you necessarily value speed at all costs, but we are saying that you value clarity in a clear direction. It's like that's saying the same thing, I guess. But but having clear direction and being able to make a decision in spite of the access to it being perfect is still what we're going for.
Well, because people trust people who trust themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when we have the ability to trust ourselves, we're decisive. So I think that that's a big thing. It's really hard to trust a leader that doesn't trust themselves.
Yeah.
That we had a nice experience over the summer, and I had a doctor that didn't trust. He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, you're the doctor. Like, if you don't know what, do you want me to cut into you? I'm like, I don't know. Do you need to get into me? Like, it was like a really scary thing because the doctor was not decisive. And I'm like, fuck. I don't know. You have a scalpel. Like, are you going to cut? It was a whole, so if they don't trust themselves, it's really hard to trust a leader that doesn't trust themselves. So I think that's where it goes back to. And indecision is a lack of trust in yourself and your ability to make that decision and all of the things that go along with it. So, and indecision is a decision in itself.
Yeah.
So
it's just one no one respects.
Yeah.
Which I think, that is, and maybe that does or doesn't sound harsh to people, but I do think we have to recognize that if we were like, oh, I'm just not good at making decisions, you can say that, but you need to recognize the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is a skill to be refined and worked on, because clarity is important, right?
Yeah.
And someone has to be the one making the decisions.
Well, and we've over sexualized this piece of I'm a good leader. I'm a good steward. I'm a good Christian. I pray about it. I weigh this stuff. And I'm like, I think it's a cop out most of the time. Yes, think about it. But I got to talk to my husband. All of those different things are actually just indecision. They're not most of the time, sometimes. So most of the time it's just, you're not actually being a good steward. You're actually just not deciding.
Yeah. So let's talk about why this matters, because you and I could talk about our personal experience. It's something that you and I both value and work on a lot. But few reasons why it matters. One, research shows that decisive leaders build more resilient teams. And I think we just know that. I think we've, pick an example, pick a team they've worked on or worked with, the ability to move quickly in a clear direction. That team's going to be much more resilient and robust, I would even add. When leaders hesitate, like you were saying, it signals doubt, and it invites second guessing. So if there's a leader who's not clear, there's no way the team's going to be clear either, which means there's going to be a lack of productivity. There's going to be a lack of, effectiveness in terms of reaching their goals. And the other and kind of final reason that it really matters and it works is because your team wants direction, not perfection. I like that kind of, little rhyme. You just have to move, right? People want to know that they're doing something that matters. And, you always say we're human beings, not human doings.
Yes.
And I think that really gets at the core of not chasing perfection, but chasing action and knowing that even if you mess it up, there's an opportunity to learn and that's an experience too. And I think people value that, I think it also changes the culture around failure. That's a whole other thing, but everybody's like, fail fast. I'm like, yeah, but what do you do with that information?
Yeah.
Right? What's the culture you've built around failure? Instead of chasing perfection, I think we can chase decisiveness, or align ourselves around decisiveness. And I think that's a much more actionable goal.
Well, and to those points, I think what stops us, like when we're in that place, is the fear that we're going to mess it up, right? But like people are okay following leaders who have failures if they know how to use the failure. So it's okay to like make the wrong decision as long as you use that for good, right? As long as you take ownership over that. So I think using that in the right direction is really important, and that's actually what builds trust, and that's what allows your team to like use failure as something that's beneficial, which helps us. That's the only way to build trust with ourselves. It's the only way to build confidence is to learn how to make decisions and then know how to utilize those decisions, whether they're like a great decision that pans out or a terrible decision. You order something on a menu, it's actually like, okay, great. Next time I have more information.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is something that like we have to recognize when we're looking at like, why do we do this? Oh, well, it's because I'm really afraid that if I mess it up, my team's going to leave. But in reality, if you mess it up and if you don't make a decision, your team will leave. Like it actually creates turnover.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of studies that show that having an indecisive leader actually crushes the culture, and that trust isn't there. So then we kind of like lose connection with that. So let's talk about like, how do we actually make decisions quickly? How do we be decisive leaders? And I think that like one of the biggest things is realizing that like things are reversible, and typically like they're not permanent, but understanding what, like weighing that, is it reversible or is it permanent, right? Like you have the ability to ask yourself like these questions to help us make decisions quickly. And that's one that you and I have like used as a filter is it reversible or is it permanent? Most things are not permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Most things can pivot. Most things can move forward. Most things can like, we can learn from our failure. So asking yourself that question, if you're in a place where you're being indecisive, I think is really important. The other percent is like, do I have 70% of the info that I need? So if you have 70% of the information that you need, you move forward.
This is like the biggest one for me. I think so many people, too many people, most people wait for some like hypothetical world where they have 100% of the information. And I just don't think that truly ever exists, because as soon as you get into something, more information presents itself. It unfolds differently. You hopefully learn and grow and take in information and pivot and collaborate. Like all of the moving pieces, 100% is not realistic. And I think if people take nothing away from this, like do not wait for 100% of the information. One, I don't think it ever happens. But two, like I just think it's a broken mindset. Like, 70%, whatever. I would even say like it could be less than that.
50 or 30,
like 51. I think if you have more than half. So like if you're like 51%, like fucking move forward, and like, and be comfortable and confident enough to know that you can learn and adapt on the fly, in the pursuit of the thing that you're trying to accomplish, in the pursuit of that decision-making framework. Like know that you're still building, right? So it's not like, okay, I've made the decision. Now I'm not going to pay attention anymore. I think that's what people, I don't know. There seems to be this kind of like this scarcity or like mindset piece. Or like, oh, once I make the decision, then I can't, there's no more information, or I won't learn, I'm just like, it keeps going. Like it's a continuum.
You don't know until you go, right? Like that like we always need to take that next step, and then we get more information. And I think sometimes sometimes people wait till they have all the information, and we ask the magic wand question. If you had a magic wand, what's the one thing you would wish for? And if you're in a place where you're trying to make that decision, if you ask yourself that, most of the time people are like, if I just know this is going to work out, I'm like, you're never going to know. Like you could be betting on something that's a 99% chance that you would win. There is still a 1% chance all of the time, nothing is guaranteed. So just make the damn decision and move on.
Yeah.
I think that that's like, you never know until you go. There's decisions that look like they were going to be freaking awesome on paper. We've made decisions in real estate that looked like they were going to be incredible on paper. And they were like some of our biggest losses. And then you make a decision that like looks like it's going to be like 30%. You're like, I'm going to try it. And it like works out great.
Yeah.
So there's no, to your point, there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
So
there's no right time. And I think that holds so many people back from their full potential, right? I mean, it's really in any area of life. You're like, oh, I need more information. I need more time, right? Like if you're on the sales side of things, right? Like, oh, I don't know what's like, it either is or it isn't, right? Like you're not going to have all the information. The other one that I think is important is to think about the question, like, will inaction create more damage than the wrong call? So this is the fear and scarcity piece. They're like, well, I'm afraid to make a decision because I'm afraid it's going to screw it up. Well, not making the decision screw things up worse.
Yeah.
And I actually think the answer is yes, 99% of the time.
Yeah.
But even if it crashes and burns, what you will learn in the process still holds more value than you not making a decision.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's still an inherent value proposition there that outweighs indecision, even if it's a total screw up. You had to do that to learn how to refine. If you don't make a decision, you literally can't access the skills required to make better decisions in the future.
Yeah, it starts to break down your trust.
So you're circling the toilet bowl and you're essentially like progressively making shittier decisions because you're not working that muscle.
Well, and you're building a habit, right? In that direction. I think to that point too, go through and like map those two out. Like what does it look like if I continue to not make a decision? Map that out. What if and then what if it's a bad decision, and map it all out. And then map out the next one of like, what if it's a great decision? If you're going to what if in the right direction? And so I think that one is key, because the story, what is it, like 98% or something is like in the 90s, high 90s% of the things that we worry about will never happen.
Yeah, that's the saying, like the biggest problems I've ever had never actually happened.
Yeah. No. So there's so many stats on that, and yet that is the what if is what stops us from making that decision. So I think understanding the cost of not making the decision is really important.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so now let's talk about how I want to switch. We talked about like the leadership decision-making framework. You and I are obviously passionate about that. Now we want to think about how do we teach our team to decide? Because there's also a culture of decision that certainly starts from the leadership side of things. But we also need to understand what it looks like to build and create confidence and decisiveness within our teams. So there's a few things that we can think about. One is we want to create a culture where speed is valued over perfection.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not saying quality.
Correct. Yeah. And that's,
but we're saying perfection.
Yeah.
So we have a, I don't know, what is it? Is it an acronym?
Gitmo?
Gitmo.
Acrostic. I think it's acrostic.
Okay, great.
We've said this several times. We're going to look it up and we're going to get it right. I think it's acrostic. Gitmo.
So Gitmo, good enough to move on. I got this from Greg Grishel, and he's one of the greats in the leadership space. But Gitmo, good enough to move on. We use this all the time on our team. We use it with each other. I'm like, I can move something on Canva 5 million times, and I shouldn't actually even be the one in Canva. And so it's just like good enough to move on. Like most of the time, perfection is the thing that's stopping us from making great decisions. And so perfectionism is actually insecurity in disguise. So make the damn decision. Gitmo.
Next is in terms of teaching your team to decide, encourage your team members to make decisions at their level, right? So people are like, oh, I don't want to like overstep. Clearly define like what's in their wheelhouse and give them the confidence and autonomy to make decisions with speed as a parameter, but also knowing that like there's a clear culture around failure and that perfection is not what we're aiming for. So encouraging the people that you work with to make decisions at at their level.
Yeah. And making sure they have the tools and resources to do so, right? Like if you're like, yes, make this decision, but they don't have the credit card number, they don't have an expense account to put that decision on, then they can't actually make the decision. They're always going to have to go back to you, which makes it your decision because they have to go to you. So if you're a leader that has decision fatigue, that has a team, look at these processes and make sure that your systems and processes are set up to actually allow leaders to make those decisions at their level. Because if you have to do the final approval on everything, emails, charges, whatever, investments, whatever, it's probably going to create decision fatigue for you. So it's a great place to look.
Yeah. And then the last one, just as like a kind of a quick takeaway in terms of teaching your team to decide, is to debrief decisions. So, we've talked about this a lot on previous episodes, but the kind of culture of autonomy, and certainly you want to create an environment where people can thrive autonomously. It doesn't mean that it absolves us of our responsibility to check in on those people, to follow up, and then in this case, that debrief, right? So they make a decision. How did it go? Take a second to debrief what worked and what didn't. So you're not doing this to punish them. You're doing it to learn. And again, in that, you're creating a culture where decisiveness and learning from the process of executing and moving forward is valued over whether or not you got it right or not. I'll use right in quotes. So that just debrief piece is really important. Like, use every one of those, or as many as you can, as opportunities to actually grow. What that does is, again, it works the muscle, and you're instilling in your team and in your culture just that, that kind of framework of like, how do we actually use this? And it also just is going to break down any of that junk that people hold on to of like, is it right? Is it wrong? In pretty short order, they're going to be like, well, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. We're going to talk about it. We're going to learn from it. And then we're going to be better the next time. And we're going to find. And then in business, there's a bajillion decisions to make. So the great thing is you're going to have an opportunity in like 2 seconds. So just sit tight. Like if you screwed this one up, like right now, there's another one, right? Like, so there's nothing. It's like never really as important as we think, right? Or it doesn't hold the weight. There are a lot of important things, but the weight that we put on each decision, I think, it's never as weighty as we think it is or should be.
You worry more about making the decision, and then you make the decision. You're like, oh, that wasn't as bad. One of my favorite practices with that and the debrief, the decisions with your team, is every time we do anything, we're like, okay, what's the 2 things that worked with this? What's your 2 celebrations? And then you get 1 thing to pivot. You get 1 thing to refine. And that's kind of like the model of how we debrief in our team. And that's worked really well. Like if a team's kicking something off, we're like, debrief after, how'd it go? 2 wins, 1 thing to work on. Because it's also a little bit like golf. You can't actually fix all of the things typically at one time. So if you just focus on the 1 thing that you're going to pivot or refine, it helps people zone in and get laser focused on what they actually want to utilize and what they actually want to work on. So that's something that we've used.
And last but not least, everyone's favorite part of the show, Leadership Challenge. Ding, 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 ding.
It's getting like so dorky.
I know. It's like Price is Right.
I know.
I'm like showing my age. Anybody like younger than us is going to be like, what the hell are these people talking about? I'm like, you don't remember game shows were the move, man.
Yeah, I know.
Shout out to Wheel of Fortune.
I know. There's some greats back then.
So a couple questions to kind of set you on your way and make sure this is tactical. Best place to start is to ask yourself, what decisions are you putting off now? Right. So part of the indecision, again, that is a decision to be indecisive. I think probably all of us are sitting on some decision that we should just make. Right. You're wrestling with it. You're putting it off. You're making other decisions that are easier or lower hanging fruit. Next, to that end, once you identify what decisions you're putting off, make the decision this week. And communicate it clearly. So set the tone again. Start to work this muscle. Don't put it off anymore. Make it now. And then communicate what decision you've made. I would encourage you to communicate why you made it. And then communicate that whatever the outcome is, the expectation is that you're going to learn and build from it and own it so that you can be better next time. So again, start to work that cultural piece into it as well. Start to communicate that with your team, with your clients, with your, it doesn't matter what your org structure is. This has a ripple effect in every part of our business. There's certainly client-facing aspects too. So whatever that communication structure strategy needs to be. And then just remember that most effective leaders aren't perfect, or the most effective leaders aren't perfect. No leader is perfect. And they're just willing to decide. So I think like the people that we look up to, the leaders that we feel like are like, man, that person's crushing it or their team's killing it. Like I guarantee you that, and there's so much research out that we know for a fact, like, they're not smarter than you, right? They're not smarter than us. They're not smarter. They're just making more decisions more quickly. And so the aggregate of all of those decisions moves them faster or moves them forward more quickly. And that's what creates success. Mm-hmm. So if they make 10 decisions in the time it takes you to make one, well, the odds are on their side, mm-hmm. right? Like maybe 9 of those sucked, but they still had one that stuck. And they are going to do that, at scale. They're literally making 100 more decisions a day than the person who's indecisive. And so again, like the most effective leaders, they are not perfect. They're not smarter than anyone else. They're just willing to decide, and they're willing to be okay with failure. They have a culture around decisiveness. They have a culture around learning and failure. And I think that's really where we need to focus. And that's where I think a lot of our frustration with ourselves when it comes to leadership, I think a lot of that's decided or can be resolved with just being more decisive. Mm-hmm. So if you need any help with this, if we can support you, if you're like, that all sounds good, but this scares the shit out of me. I have no idea how to be decisive. I overthink everything. It takes me 14 weeks to make a decision. My team is the same way. Then we would love to talk to you. You can reach out to us at impactinitiative.network. We're here to be a resource. Truly, let us know how we can help. Share your wins. If you're crushing this and you're like, yep, got it. I'd love to hear about that too. So impactinitiative.network. And then also join us if you are in the Denver, Colorado area. We have our in-person service hub event. It is on the 4th Thursday of every month. It's going to be at Kiln Co-working in Littleton, Colorado. Beautiful space, and just an amazing atmosphere to connect, to learn, to walk away with tactical things that you can implement into your business right now. It's a free networking event in person in Denver, Colorado. Again, that's on the 4th Thursday of every month, and we will put all of the information in the show notes, and you can reach out to us as well at impactinitiative.network if you have any questions. We'll see you next time on Impact Minded.